let's talk about what shaped video games in 2020. Which screen am I going to go to? It's a surprise. It's this one. Yay. All right. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. So it's easier to see on the YouTube video. All right, friends. 2020 in gaming. What happened? All right, so before I go, this is all stuff that is 1 through 10 is all stuff that is just video games. But there was one big thing that happened that changed video games. And that big thing was coronavirus. That's right. You've come to a casual video game news stories of the year, and you're thinking about death now. I'm sorry. It's miserable. I apologize. That happened this year. It changed everything for the game industry, just like it did the rest of the world. But putting it in the top 10 felt weird to me because it just felt weird. It's obligatory. Yeah, COVID changed everything in the gaming industry just like it did in every other industry. Someone is playing drums with their fucking hands on a table upstairs and I'm losing it. Yeah, COVID changed everything this year and it sucked and it was hellish, and that's really the rest that I'm going to talk about it for this video. Let's talk about what happened just germane to video games. The rest of this list is just video game talk, so we'll get out of this zone now. I'm actually going to go back to choose so we don't have to leave and look at the word. For my own health, my own mental health. Just don't want to all right, number 10. Halo Infinite getting delayed to fall 2021 is buck wild. It is buck wild. It's buck wild for a couple of reasons. One, Xbox launched a console this year. Microsoft launched the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S, which is a horrible naming convention, and we'll get into that when we get into that. But we should talk about Halo Infinite getting delayed to next year, which you might not think is a big deal. Here's why it's a big deal. Hey, when you think about Microsoft and video games, it's like thinking about Nintendo and Mario. Master Chief and Halo are really so closely tied to the gamers' mind share of Microsoft that it is hard to undervalue how important Halo is to Microsoft as a franchise. It really is. It's hard to underplay that. So, Halo Infinite being delayed past the release of it was supposed to release with the console, and it getting delayed to fall of next year is a big deal. They're trying to sell consoles, they're trying to sell this hardware, and they don't really have an exclusive, right? They don't really have an exclusive for their launch. I also don't know how much exclusives matters in launch. I think they do, because I bought a PlayStation based on the fact that PlayStation 5, based on the fact that Demon's Souls came out on it. I'm not buying an Xbox. But it's arguable that part of their content strategy is like, hey, we have the Game Pass, and you get a fucking shit ton of games to play on a really good looking TV. Everything's pretty much third party now anyway. Come on in here, you filthy casual console gamers, and play our thing. So I still think that's a big deal, because if they weren't releasing all of their first party games day and date on PC along with their console releases, then and if Halo actually hit its deadline to come out with the console, I could have bought an Xbox. That definitely might have happened. But I did not buy an Xbox, and I probably won't buy an Xbox because all their stuff comes out in PC. Anyway, we're now kind of off the topic of Halo Infinite getting delayed. I think it's wild. They didn't have a game to launch that console with, but I don't think it really matters. The way the hype train works nowadays in consoles, the shit's selling out. Everybody wants to buy one. No one can get one. I don't know if it really matters, but to me, as kind of a classic look at console launches, Halo getting delayed and not launching with the console and looking at the launch lineup with that thing is a detriment. I think that is it's wild that they weren't able to get it there. I mean, but hey, it's better to delay and the game come out not like Cyberpunk than to not have delayed at all. Let's move on. Epic versus Apple and Fortnite getting pulled off of the App Store and Google Play Store. That is buck wild. I mean, it's absurd, right? It's absurd that Epic would say, hey man, who needs all this money from the App Store? Who needs it? We want more money from the App Store. At a certain point, Epic did the math and they said, hey, if we can't get a 15% cut, so basically what happened here, if you don't know this news, Apple takes 30% of all revenue released from apps on the App Store. So when Epic puts out Fortnite, that's a free game, right? So you're thinking, hey, that's a free video game. Why do they care? Well, it's not really free, right? You pay for a season pass, you pay for clothing and shit. And when you pay through, when your app is downloaded through the App Store and you purchase Epic's gamer points, what are they called? V-Bucks? V-Bucks through the App Store, Apple takes 30% of that. And Epic would like them to take less. They want them to take like 15% of that. So there are more arguments here, and there's more information on basically Apple, because the iPhone is a closed ecosystem. You basically can't distribute an app to it without jailbreaking or doing something that Apple is like, that's a no-no on our platform. And so because it's a closed ecosystem, they're basically saying like, hey, this is a non-competitive environment, right? You have created a platform, a place that people do business that you cannot compete on. You are not at the point now where you are still a growing platform and it makes sense that you're a walled garden. At this point, you're so big, you're basically Windows. And it would be weird if you couldn't download apps on your desktop PC through anywhere except the Windows Store. That sounds weird, right? They're making that argument now for the iPhone and the App Store versus any other place that you could get apps on it. You can't get apps on your iPhone unless you do some stuff that Apple doesn't like I said. Epic is basically suing them, saying like, hey, either let us launch our own store so people can download the game from there and we don't have to pay you your blood money, or I think they want basically a better cut. They're trying to force their hand on giving them a better cut of their revenue. One moment. Forgot to crack open my Polar Seltzer. Thank you, Polar Seltzer, for sponsoring this. They don't sponsor this, but... Polar Seltzer, refreshingly natural. One day they'll sponsor me, I bet, for sure. So anyway, I mean, I hate the whole Epic versus Apple thing, to be completely honest. The way Epic is riling up their gamers to yell at people who work for Apple on Twitter or to yell at Apple on Twitter is dumb, and it's just to create news stories, right? Everybody's kid plays Fortnite, and that'll trickle into the people who make the news and all the news story, right? As if like a $1 billion company attacking another multi-billion-dollar company isn't going to create enough articles. Them riling up their fan base and using an old Apple commercial as essentially the platform to do it on their social media campaign is interesting. It's also gross. Like, I just hate this whole like, oh, $1 billion company. It's interesting. But also I just, yeah. All right. Left a bad taste in my mouth. Let's move on. Number 8. What is the 8th most interesting thing to happen in gaming in 2020? Decided by me, the most knowledgeable gamer. It's the Twitch DMCA stuff. If you thought it was more important than that, then you're stupid. No, I mean, it's important, but I think some people, especially on this platform, hello, I'm on Twitch right now, would rank it higher. And it's just not. It just isn't. YouTube has already been doing this for a long time. The music industry is ruthless and horrible with defending copyright. And it was only a matter of time until they came up to Twitch and said, hey, belly up, dipshits. We are here to take our blood money. If you do not start, deleting these videos and whatnot, we will sue you. So Twitch was then like, ah, shit. And they started DMCAing people. The way Twitch handled it wasn't good. Some would argue it was very bad. It was pretty bad, the way they handled it and went about it. But it's a big deal because Twitch was essentially the Wild West, right? For this type of for people being able to listen to music and like while they're playing games and stuff like that, and setting their stream to different things that are copyright music material and kind of getting away with it for the most part. Sure, your VOD would get muted, but who cares? That's not a big deal. Getting DMCA claims and your account being threatened to implode is a bigger deal. Twitch should have created better tools. They should have essentially created tools to delete all your clips, because the problem isn't VODs, it's the clips. The clips don't get muted if someone clips it while it's happening. And so the VOD, Twitch will go through and mute all the copyright music, so that's not such a big problem. But clips seemingly don't get muted. So all of these things, all of these clips that were floating around with copyright music on them, could get DMCA'd, and then Twitch could get sued for basically hosting this music on their platform that they didn't pay for. And so then they're gonna send you, hey, we're gonna delete your fucking account. You've got DMCA material. Like, you've got, you gotta fix this. They should have provided some tool to delete all of your clips or mute all your VODs or something. They're already muting the VODs. They should have just provided an internal Twitch tool for saying, hey, go through all my clips and try and, maybe that's too big of a task for them. Maybe their servers wouldn't be able to handle that. But I think their servers could handle just going through your fucking clips and deleting anything that you told it to. And if you threaten to destroy most of their Twitch channels and their livelihood, they would listen and they would go through and fucking delete all their clips. So the Twitch DMCA stuff is bad, and it's big news because of how Twitch handled it, not necessarily because of anything new that's changed in digital rights management in terms of the overall ecosystem of the internet, but because of the way Twitch handled it. It became a big news story because they just started sending out not fake emails, but they sent out emails that are like, we are going to blow up your channel in 3, 2, 1, like essentially like saying like, hey, if you get any more things, fucking deleting your shit, bro. And it's like, that's not good. So yeah, Twitch DMCA. I don't know, Twitch has done a million things with this platform that are questionable at the best. So, but it is what it is. Don't listen to copyrighted music on your stream. That's what I got. 2020, baby. All right, number 7. What is number 7? I actually don't remember. We're getting to the point now. I don't remember what I put on this list. I made it like a few days ago. It is a surprise to me. I don't have a script or anything here. I'm just going off the cuff. I listed these things and I figured, all right, I'll fucking talk about it. All right, number 7. I also went through about 30 things. I had about 30 news headlines, by the way, if you're curious as to how I did this. I pulled 30 different, I pulled 5 websites, all of their biggest news stories in gaming in 2020, and I just put and then I ranked the top 10 and I erased the rest. A lot of them were like stuff like Dr. Disrespect is banned from Twitch and shit. That's whatever, dude. Like, that's some internal garbage that doesn't matter. That's like drama, It's not worthy of the 2020 biggest stories in gaming, in my opinion. But depends on who you talk to. If you live, breathe, eat, sleep, shit Twitch, then yeah, that matters. But anyway, my list, number 7. Blizzard employs unfair pay. And I have a link here of an article about it. Basically, it just came out that a lot of Blizzard employees are not compensated well. I'm gonna go to my Google Drive because I have a, let's see, I have a list here of all the things. They're not in order, so don't worry. It doesn't give you a, it shouldn't spoil the rest of this list. Basically, Blizzard's workers share salaries and revolt over pay. So basically a bunch of people, oh God, please God, why? Basically a bunch of people at Blizzard, employees, developers, artists, testers, QA, all these people were like, hey dude, I think I'm getting way underpaid. And people just started tweeting like, this is what I'm earning, this is the job that I do, this is where I live. Like, I live and work here and I'm only paid this to work at Blizzard. You know, a giant game company owned by an even bigger game company, Activision, right? That's a big problem. This is important, right? There were walkouts over this. This is a big deal. You know, I think a lot of people are ignorant to the fact of working conditions of people in the game industry because they think it's like a dream job and you get paid a bunch of money and you get to make cool games, you make cool stuff all day. A lot of the work is just generally hard, you know, technical work that takes a long time to become very good at. And because it seems like a dream job and the best thing in the world, a lot of people will fucking do it for no money, essentially, just so they can get into the industry because it's what they've worked on and studied for so long. And breaking into the industry is really hard. One moment. So, then it leads to people being exploited in terms of their pay versus what their value really is to the company. And, you know, I mean, it's nothing that almost isn't really new to just being a worker in America. But it is kind of, it is magnified or multiplied in terms of how rough it is because of how big Activision Blizzard are. You know, this giant company that makes billions and billions of dollars, right? Makes shit tons of money, are paying very talented, hardworking people that live in some of the most expensive cities in America and around the world, mostly in America, in San Francisco, not paying them right. They aren't able to live off of their salaries even sometimes. Some of them, like multiple people from these studios will share rooms or they'll live with their family still. And these are people who are doing an incredibly technical job at one of the biggest names in the game industry. So that's a big deal. I think it shined a light on, working in video games is not all it's cracked up to be. Especially because when you have young, hungry talent burgeoning to get into this industry way more than they can employ, you don't have to pay them well or treat them well, because you got 5 kids out of college or out of their mom's basement. That's not a dig. That's how it would be sometimes. I live in a basement. You know, waiting to take their seat, so you don't treat them right. It sucks. Game industry is not perfect or great. Anyway, let's move on. Fuck you, Blizzard. Fuck you, Activision. Eat a bag of dicks. All right, number 6. E3 canceled, and what does that mean for E3 going forward? So coronavirus made E3 get canceled this year, but if you had been following E3 for the past few years, you would know that they leaked a bunch of information because they had an unsecure website of people, mostly journalists, who attended it. And people on the internet are assholes. I guess I should just say people are assholes. People are assholes. And when they get this information, I don't know, they'll like SWAT you. They'll call people to your fucking house, or, you know, they'll try and do fucked up shit when they get your personal information, because of course they will. People are monsters. So that happened the ESA, you know, had an unsecure website and that information was leaked before this, right? And it made a lot of journalists and outlets look at the ESA and E3 and be like, can you do a little bit better? Can you do just a little bit better in terms of how you're running this whole thing. And so it was not in a great place in terms just public perception. Also, Sony wasn't there in 2019. Sony was like, hey, wait a minute, we're paying them all this money, millions of dollars, bringing all these people to their event. We can just do our own event. The internet exists, and we're a big important company. Why can't we do an Apple-like event? Why can't we do a Google-like event? We're fucking Sony, and they are. So they did that last year. They didn't go to E3. And this year, E3 didn't happen. So, basically, all these companies did their own online events. And I think really it's going to be a big deal for publishers and whatnot now. I think Microsoft and Nintendo hasn't really been at E3 in a major way in a while, right? Their presence actually there is, not huge at E3. Since they started doing Nintendo Directs, because they actually figured this out a while ago, that they can just talk to their audience directly because of the internet. So E3 is not, it might not be the ultimate death knell, but it's gonna hurt them. I think Microsoft will not return to E3. If I had to predict what happens for E3 going forward, this was one of the things that coronavirus kind of sped up a lot of stuff. In some ways, coronavirus halted a lot of things. But otherwise, coronavirus fast-forwarded a lot of things. The movie theater industry is getting utterly dunked on. Obviously, malls, things that are brick and mortar that were like, a little shaky, really put to the test. And E3 is a physical event where thousands of people gather en masse and get very close to one another. And that didn't happen. And it was already kind of going downhill. So this kind of fast forwarded it 3, 4, 5 years to where I think Ubisoft and EA and all these other companies, Activision, are going to realize like, hey, wait, we can actually all just do our own events. We don't have to show up to E3. We're a giant company with lots of games under our belt. Why do we have to go compete with EA for news? We just do our own event. And sometimes you will or sometimes you won't grab more eyeballs if you do your own thing as a part of being part of a big thing like E3. So they'll have to weigh that out. But I'm sure they looked at how their own little events did for them and their online reception was this year, because that's really where you're getting the most eyeballs anyway. And I'm sure they looked at all that stuff and were like, So we'll see what happens with E3 in 2021. But I think the coronavirus definitely pushed it a little bit quicker down the hill that it was already kind of trundling down. It's interesting because there are other gaming events like PAX, the Penny Arcade Expo, Comic-Con and stuff, which is, comics, but it's nerd stuff, right? Comic-Con is really nerd con, right? you got everything there. And there's other international events. I know there's one in Germany. I can't think of. Is Gamescom? Gamescom, I think, is what I'm thinking of, the one in Germany. Anyway, there's other large gaming fan-focused experiences, right? And that's what E3 was kind of transitioning towards, that have been doing this for a long time, the past 5, 10 years, right? 15 years. And they just know how to do it better. The ESA and E3 have had a difficult time transforming into a more of a fan-focused event and less of a news-focused event for the past 2 years now. So it'll be interesting to see if they can really turn it around with how they receive audiences, and receive people wanting to go to E3, and being part of that experience and playing the video games. Honestly, I don't know. I feel like if there was a PAX SoCal, they could probably sweep the leg on E3 and erase the need for that event. But we'll see what happens going forward with E3 and the ESA. All right, moving on. Microsoft's Bethesda acquisition for $7.5 billion. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. I think this is a really big news story because after the launch, this goes back to the launch of the Xbox One, the original Xbox One in 2014. When did the Xbox One release? Xbox One launch date. I bet you it's 2013. All right, I was a year off. Fuck me. Anyway, that thing fucking was a trash fire in terms of how it was received and launched. People were not happy, their sales were bad. And Microsoft just started to lose studios that were making interesting, exciting games for them. The beginning of the Xbox One console lifecycle, there was very few exclusives, and I remember I did a video game podcast with my friend Jean-Luc, who works over at GameSpot. Shout out to Jean-Luc. And I said, man, who's gonna buy this thing? There's no games. What is the point of this? And people bought it, but that was and also my problem was, hey, they don't have studios making new, exciting, interesting games. They have one studio that replaced Epic in making Gears of War, and it's not great. It's fine, but it's not as exciting as it once was, right? You kind of need new IP to drive interest. And you have this other studio making Halo that isn't the original studio. That's not Bungie. They're making Halo, and it's also not really as good. Why do you want an Xbox? Why? And who's gonna make these new exciting Xbox titles? And the answer was fucking nobody. The answer for the entire generation of the Xbox One lifecycle was nobody. And it's still kind of nobody. There's not really any exclusive games there's a few, maybe Ori, that doesn't come out on PlayStation, that's on PC. But if you ignore the fact that all their games also come out on PC, basically the reason to get an Xbox later, an Xbox One, series, an Xbox One X or S, and now Series X and S is their Netflix-style platform. And you might be wondering, how the fuck does this tie into Bethesda? They need exclusive video games that aren't also on Sony's platform to play on your television. Not everybody is going to build a computer that costs almost $2,000 to play all of the latest and greatest games at a high resolution and frame rate. I'm a crazy person. Maybe you are too. A lot of people are normal human beings. They put a box under their TV, they plug in the thing, and they want to play the good new video games. The Xbox is good at having that subscription platform and just offering you a lot of games to play from other third parties now that are basically free, as part of your subscription. And that revitalization of the Xbox platform is good. It will pull people into the Xbox ecosystem through that subscription model, but you still need games that are exclusive to you and not Sony. And right now, Forza and Ori, Microsoft Flight Simulator, they have Halo and Gears, but as I said, no one cares, so what are we gonna do? They're gonna buy game studios. They have to, and I said this back in 2013, I was like, back in 2014, 2013, when I was talking to my friend about the launch of this console, and what are they gonna do? I think in 2014, 2015, before I was living in Montreal, before I was working up there, I had talked to him and I was like, hey man, they need to buy studios now, because they do not have exclusives. They just don't. It's 2020 and they still don't. So they need to make giant acquisitions like this. This is big news, but also they need to do this. Microsoft has to have studios that are going to make big titles like Gears of War and The Last of Us that are new and exciting and fresh. It's funny because, God of War. Like God of War, even though it's revamped from an old game, but it's a totally new experience, right? That new God of War series. They need to revitalize their excitement, If they had a brand new game exclusive to their console, I might have even bought it just to play it on my TV. Sometimes it's nice to just plug in the box on the TV. I play games on my PlayStation on the fucking 4K TV I have because it just works. The PS5 on my 4K TV, it looks good and it just works. One moment. I'm dying. Okay, sorry about that. If they had made an exciting title for the Xbox One Series X, that sure might have come out on PC, but I know it's gonna work and look good on the Xbox Series X, and I can put it on my really sick 4K TV and sit on my couch and play it, not have to go through a big HDMI for my computer over that thing. Yeah, I would probably have bought one. Fuck it, that would have been cool. There's not any games like that they have to draw people to the platform, so this is a very necessary step, and it's huge news because it really marks Microsoft recommitting to the game industry and recommitting to video games. I would say from the tail end of the Xbox 360 to now, it's been rough. This was really a PS3 level fuck up. That Sony, then recommitted at the end of the life cycle of the PS3 and PS4. They were like, we fixed it. It's the same thing for the Xbox One. At the end of the first Xbox One life cycle, they recommitted with Game Pass. And now with Xbox Series X, they're like, okay, we're here, but you do need to deliver the video games now. So hopefully some exclusives coming from Bethesda and some of their other acquisitions will have them arrive in this console cycle. And I'd buy. I said before I wouldn't buy one, but if they offered something that looked really solid, that was maybe on the console and the computer, but I wanted to see it in UHD on my OLED television. Yeah, I'll get the console for that, sure. But you gotta deliver the games. Anyway, number 4, Ubisoft's everything. Oh, Ubisoft, what a year you have had. What an absolute year Ubisoft has had. Let me get that article up. So, Ubisoft survey reveals that 25% of employees have seen or experienced workplace misconduct. Imagine a quarter of your employees saying like, yeah, seen some harassment, seen some racism, seen some that's not good in a workplace. If you don't know what happened here, the TLDR is there was another Me Too movement this year that came, I think it started in wrestling and then it kind of pushed out into every other entertainment industry. And it came to video games, and basically a lot of people that work at Ubisoft were like, uh-oh, these really high up people are very bad. Like a lot of claims of straight up sexual harassment or possible what's the word I'm trying to think of? Yeah, I don't know, sexual harassment, other bad things that you shouldn't do at work came out of this Me Too movement. And basically Ubisoft's entire move was to not talk about it or address it. And eventually they basically were like, we're gonna do better. Oh God, we're gonna do better. And they kept a lot of people in charge. They covered the asses of a lot of people who were doing these bad things. Hey, after ranting on about the whole thing with Blizzard, imagine working in a place, it's very competitive and hard to get into, and you don't want to leave because you worked so hard to get there. And then like your boss is a nightmare that like screams at people in meetings and says like really basically just sexist stuff in meetings and saying like women don't matter in video games and like you gotta make your games appeal to this group of people for anyone to buy them and shit like that. It's not good, especially if you are a woman working in a space where there's not a lot of ladies working. It's not a fun scene to be in. Also, just straight up sexual harassment and sexual misconduct allegations thrown around at higher ups at the company. And basically nothing really happening. A lot of those people are still on the board of the company and they walked away with a lot of money. So Ubisoft basically covering their hot asses of this, family. I think it's the Guillemets. Yeah, the Guillemets. I'm probably saying their name super fucking badly. It's French, I apologize. But yeah, covering their whole asses and trying to get these people who did some not so great things, quietly hushed out of the company as quickly as possible. Well done. Congratulations on being a nightmare company, Ubisoft. Thank you for really doing the thing. You make video games that I don't like, and you're apparently a bunch of shitlords. So, hats off. All right. I'm sorry. I don't know if there's much more to say on that. I rambled on about Microsoft for like 20 minutes, and this I talked for like 5 minutes on, but I don't know what to say other than there was sexual misconduct at this company. There's workplace harassment. There was like a lot of things that like you shouldn't have to deal with in any environment, let alone a work environment. And the fact that basically it was all tried to be swept under the rug is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Okay. All right. Sorry. It's a real downer. Moving on, number 3, Mixer getting shut down. This is actually really important. Excuse me. So, you might say, this is not a big deal. I would argue, this is a very big deal. I bet a lot of people might have forgotten this happened. The reason being, a lot of people forgot Mixer existed, right? But this is why this is important. There is effectively no competition to Twitch. There's Facebook gaming, no one watches it. There is YouTube gaming and live streaming. The only people that watch that are people who subscribe to big channels, and then occasionally those people will stream on the platform. But really, if you're going to stream video games on the internet, there's one platform, and it's Twitch, right? Mixer was designed for this exact purpose, right? Facebook gaming is Facebook, and it has this like live gaming section. YouTube is posted videos of trimmed down, like good, YouTube style edited content, most of it, or the good stuff. I don't know. Anyway. And then there's also live streams. Mixer was designed to be a game streaming platform that was purchased by Microsoft. Microsoft? You've heard of Microsoft? And then they failed to challenge Twitch, right? And Amazon is a big company. Microsoft is also a big company. And the fact that they entered the space, purchased Mixer 2017, 2018, maybe a little sooner, and failed after purchasing essentially big names from Twitch. They were going for it. They purchased these big names for millions, $20 million maybe on Shroud or what's his name? Fortnite guy. Ninja's contracts. They spent dozens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions of dollars on these guys' contracts. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't pull people in. And platforms being monoliths of the marketplace is a thing in all technology. When you think of online shopping, you think of Amazon, right? When you think of searching something, you think of Google. When you think of watching live game, really just live anything on the internet now, people, or even things that aren't gaming, you think of Twitch, right? I think of going to Twitch when there's any live thing now, because I know there might just be a stream of it up there because everybody knows that people stream on Twitch. So, I think there not being competition in a lot of these spaces is a big problem in tech, because of the nature of technology and our internet future moving forward. And Microsoft not being able to hold on and really challenge them is a big deal. And it's kind of a shame. It's a shame that there's not competition in that space to make Twitch do better. This is why Twitch can handle the DMCA stuff poorly. There's not competition. There is not viable competition to them in the space. So the Mixer shut down. RIP. Never forget. It sucks. It less competition is not good. It makes the platforms weaker that are already the leader, right? They don't have to do much to change what they're doing if there's no competition. So, number 2, I truly don't remember what number 2 is, everyone. Console launches. Yeah, that is a big deal. So the console launches are obviously a big deal because video games. So video game consoles launching is a big deal. Even though I think the future is going to be, smaller updates to these things going forward, I think Sony will continue to just number their fucking consoles. But really, if you look at the PS4 to the PS5, the interface changed and it moved around, and actually it's much more different than what Microsoft did with their interface. But really, the biggest difference is the controller has cool vibrations, which I actually do think are really cool. But it's a spec bump. It's a spec bump. That's what consoles are now. It's like every other technology, it's a spec bump. And I think every 5 years we can expect a new console or half-step console launch where they will give us a spec bump. That'll be the platform that developers target for a while. And it might have a new series name from Microsoft or a new number from Sony, but I think that's the way it's going. People don't want to buy a new console every 2 years or 3 years like they do a phone, but every 4 or 5 years there's more, people have more of an appetite for that, right? Maybe you hold off on the PlayStation 5 and you pick up the PlayStation 5 Slim, that the fans are better, it runs a little better. Oh, and there's a PlayStation 5 Pro that does 8K 60 if you have an 8K television in 2025. Maybe. That sounds wild to me, but maybe. Considering we're still kind of grappling with 4K, it seems like for a lot of these games to hold 60 frames or even 30 frames a second, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, the console launch is a big deal. We have new consoles. Sony and Microsoft had to belly up again and show us what they got. I think the biggest thing for me with these is really seeing Microsoft's new attempt at a new era, right? Trying to separate from that last section, which they needed to change the name. The biggest problem for these new consoles, in my opinion, is the name of the Xbox Series X and S. They launched the Xbox One. Then they launched the Xbox One S. Then they launched the Xbox... Is it the Xbox One Series X? Xbox One Series X. Is that the name of it? No, it's just the Xbox Series X. Okay. I don't even know. The Xbox Series X. Oh, it's bad. What a bad name for that thing. Anyway, they've goofed on that. But yeah, I think they fucked up on their naming conventions, and but the new consoles are here, and I think it will be interesting to see how this drives TVs. Honestly, because I think a lot of people held off on 4K because it was so expensive the last few years. If you really wanted to, you could get a Pro, you could get a PS4 Pro or an Xbox One X, get a 4K TV and be like, oh shit. But now 4K TVs are pretty affordable. Not the really good ones. Those are still very, like an OLED or something that's going to do close to true blacks and really brights. Those are still closer to $1,000. But a 4K TV with HDR compatibility, even if, that is still going to look better than a 1080, a solid 1080p panel. More pixel density, better, more exciting colors, let's say, more drastic darks and lights and more vibrant colors. I think that is going to be interesting to see how it continues. I think it'll really drive the price of 4K displays down. And that's kind of interesting to me. And I guess I'm also interested to see, like, what do they do? Usually generations used to be marked with something saying we couldn't do this last time. And is what they couldn't do last time just 4K at a solid 60 FPS? Is that the new thing with these new consoles? Maybe it is. I mean, to be honest, that's nice. I've been playing games 4K 60 FPS on my new PlayStation 5 on this new 4K TV I got, and it looks great. It's pretty cool. My computer that was several times more expensive than that console 4K 60 it can do, but I like playing games on my 144 hertz 1440p monitor, and doing that kind of resolution and frame rate is difficult sometimes. So 4K 60 FPS is a nice goal for the new consoles, but it's not flashy. I hope that maybe just the heft, the beef of the new consoles and their raw horsepower, let's say, and it makes it easier for developers to get that 4K 60, and it can maybe help development in terms of like maybe not as much needs to be put into what am I thinking of? Oh my god, I can't think of the word when you're refining something so it runs better. I can't remember the fucking word for it. Anyway, I guess I'm just hoping that it makes development smoother for games that are going to go on these new, onto a 4K panel. That just helps it run better. Possibly when you add more grunt into it, you don't have to worry as much about how efficient your engine is and how many polygons are on all your models or how big are your textures, when there's just more grunt in the console when it's reading from an SSD. Honestly, if you're a console player, these new consoles are worth it just because of the SSD. That's actually a real thing that I should talk about with these is, I'm used to it because I've been playing PC games for the past 10 years, and for longer than that, but building my own PC and playing games on it for the past 10 years. And SSDs change the way that video games play. They just do. Waiting minutes after a death in Dark Souls or Demon Souls or whatever, any of these games where you might die a lot, sucks. Super sucks. And it helps make it palatable when the deaths don't take as long. So, yeah. All right, are we ready? I know what number 1 is. And you might notice that something wasn't talked about here. I recently made a video about this. Very recently made a video about this. So I will not rant as much as I did in that other video. If you want to hear more about this, go to the other recently uploaded video on my YouTube channel. But I will talk about it for a bit here. Cyberpunk 2077. Wow. What a complete night trash fire. It just was. If you played this game on the PC and it mostly worked for you, and you were able to get through the entire experience bug-free, that's great. That's great. Good for you. This game released on the PS4 and Xbox One consoles, and it is a complete mess. It forced two of the largest it forced Microsoft and Sony to start accepting returns, and Sony pulled it from the store. That's bad. If your console launch of a game does that, you've done a bad job. I think it's interesting. I see a lot of gamers online. And they're like, hey man, I played through it. It was good. I actually had a lot of fun. It was my game. I've seen some people say it's their game of the year. That's great. Very happy for you. I think people don't understand that, like, it doesn't. They're trying to minimize the true trash fire that was the launch of this game. Your experience is not germane to everyone else's experience with it. This game was an utter trash fire on the consoles. And it forced Sony to pull it from the store, and all of the major outlets, all the major retailers were accepting refunds on that game. Does that matter for CD Projekt Red? I mean, for their reputation, yes. But for, like, money, probably not. It seems like the game sold fucking gangbusters anyway. And I bet you when the game is, like, patched and fixed up and stuff like that in the next coming weeks, more people will buy the game. People will be like, oh, I heard it's good now, and then they'll play it. Hi, YouTube. Hi, Hype. But yeah, I mean, Cyberpunk 2077, it was unquestionably the biggest news story of the year because it was the most anticipated game of the year. It was the most anticipated game of the year, and it was a complete disaster from toe to tip. If you disagree, you're just wrong. I'm sorry. I don't care if you played it on PC and it worked well for you. It was an utter disaster on the consoles that have millions and millions install base and where it undoubtedly sold more copies. So that's just how it is. I'm sorry. It was a mess. Not saying that the developers are bad people. I'm not saying you're an idiot for liking the game. I'm just saying that you're wrong about this not being important. Or being a big deal, or actually being as big of a trash fire as it was. Do console lives matter? Not responding to that. Not responding to that. But yeah, that's it. That's the number one. That's it. These are the biggest games in these are the biggest stories. These are the biggest games. These are the biggest stories in gaming for this year, in my opinion. Yeah, let's review. Let's review. At number 10. Well, the actual biggest thing of the year, again, coronavirus. It affected every industry. We all know. Halo Infinite being delayed. Woof, Microsoft. Woof. Epic versus Apple. Billionaires fighting billionaires with gamers as their army. Gamers rise up. Please don't rise up. Take a fucking seat. It's a goddamn video game. Play it on your Nintendo Switch, children. Okay? It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Twitch DMCA. Man, they could have handled that better. Like they could handle everything better. Blizzard. Who needs food on the table when you're making video games? E3 being canceled. Will it exist in the future? Microsoft buying Bethesda. Gosh, I hope that they put out video games that give someone any reason to buy their console. Ubisoft. Everything being a complete trash fire. Hiding sexual misconduct and harassment at their company from toe to tip, and basically the HR department saying, hey, we won't help you if you don't tell us that we won't get fired or sued, is wild. They basically wanted to be exonerated for helping out the organization. That, when you have HR, I mean, that's what HR is there for, if we're doing real talk. If you have HR asking to be exonerated so that they can talk about the stuff that's happened at your company, it's very bad. Mixer shut down. There's no competition for Twitch, and Microsoft is Microsoft, and they couldn't do it. Man, just a lot of disappointing Microsoft stuff here. Mixer shut down. The console launches. Xbox name is terrible. And finally, again, Cyberpunk being a complete unmitigated disaster is how we will think about 2020 going forward in regards to gaming. In every other way we think about it, it'll be this, but just in regards to gaming, it's all this stuff. Yeah, if you're on YouTube watching this, thank you so much for watching. Go check out my stream on Twitch. I'll be on Twitch. I'm here on Twitch right now. Hi, hype. Hi, chat. This has been my 2020 in gaming. My response has been recorded. Don't submit your response. There's only my good, accurate answers are here. Yes, thank you, hype, for... Yes, go right there. Go right over there and do that. All right, bye, YouTube. Bye, YouTube.